We are here today with JD Cunegan, whose superhero stories sound like huge amounts of trouble and also very much fun. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on at the moment now that the world has gone crazy.
Well, I released the fifth book in the series 2 weeks ago. It's called Betrayal. It was 3 years in the making. It was a very difficult book to write, but I finally managed to wrangle it and get the story down. And it was one of the best book launches I've had. I don't know if the fact that we're all stuck at home with nothing better to do and we're all just reading has anything to do with it. But
Who knows? Maybe. Or maybe you're just better at marketing now
well,
than you were.
if I am, I'd like to know what I did that was right so I can do it again.
Darn, I was going to ask that question.
Oh, I'm
I need
sorry to
all the
disappoint.
marketing tips.
I have theories about what might work, but I don't know for certain. But the series is about Jill Anderson, a Baltimore homicide cop who's also a superhero known as Bounty. It's murder mystery plus superheroes. There's a dash, a little bit of sci-fi in there, not too much. So if you're looking for hardcore sci-fi, I'm not your guy. But some readers say it's a mix between Daredevil and Castle, which I'll take that comparison.
Sounds fun.
Especially considering Kate Beckett is one of the main characters of Castle. She's one of the influences for Jill. So it kind of didn't. I didn't plan it that way, but I was watching Castle, and the more I would watch, the more I realized, wait, Kate's a lot like Jill. So it worked out in that regard. That's pretty much the main thing with the series. There's 5 books. Bounty is the first one. I just reduced the price of that one to 99 cents on all major e-readers, Kindle, Note, Kobo, iBooks. So
Right.
no better time to jump on. I think Betrayal is the most intense, most emotional of the series so far. I'm currently writing book 6, Bitter End, right now. I'm hoping to top what I did in Betrayal with that one.
Oh dear.
So let all my readers be forewarned on that. But that's the series in a nutshell. Murder mystery, superheroes, billionaire bad guys, all that good stuff.
Sounds like fun. But then I like the investigation of death, so
There's a good bit of this. There's a good bit of that, yes. And this is where I learned I better learn to be more of a plotter than I currently am.
Oh.
When I'm very much I'm what they call a pantser.
Yep.
But I've learned the value of something resembling an outline, if for no other reason than when I'm writing chapter 52 and I want to make sure I don't contradict what I wrote in chapter 4.
Ah. I have done that, and then the editing process becomes far more entertaining.
I want the editing to be as seamless as possible, so I try to catch as much of that on the front end as I can.
Yeah.
I especially don't want my editors coming back to me going, "This makes no sense."
That is slightly problematic.
Although better the editor to tell me something doesn't make sense than someone who reads it after I hit publish.
Yes. I've read books like that, and I always feel a little badly going, oh, but you missed a spot.
Did anyone read this before you hit print?
No, always good to get things sorted out in the editing process as opposed to afterwards.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and do you plot out who done it, or is it, a mystery? Because being a pantser and having done some mystery bits, I usually don't know who done it until I figure out who done it.
It depends on if the person who did it is related to the main villain of the entire series or not.
Okay.
If it relates back to him somehow, I know ahead of time who did it.
Sure.
If it's someone random, then sometimes I pretty much discover it as I'm writing it. I'll write the chapter and I'll go, oh, okay, that's who did it. But I'm of the mindset where if I'm surprised when I'm writing it, chances are pretty good that my readers are going to be surprised.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
I don't want them to see it coming a mile away, but at the same time, I don't want them to feel like they just got blindsided by 18-wheeler.
Yes, that would be also problematic. Okay, so how do you fit the superhero bit into the whole murder mystery bit? Because, well, from my comic book experience, there's not so much of the mystery as the exploration of the darkened soul going on.
It actually goes back to a comic book that was really popular back when I was in high school, called Witchblade.
Okay.
Not the current Witchblade, because they rebooted the series and it's a completely different character now.
Uh-huh.
But back in the 90s, the main character of Witchblade was a woman named Sarah Pizzini. She was a homicide cop in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And she wound up being the bearer of this mystical gauntlet called the Witchblade and also supernatural shenanigans. But in my case, instead of the supernatural, there's the science fiction angle, where in that sense, Jill's backstory is very similar to Wolverine's.
Uh-huh.
She served in the military, and while she was in the military, she underwent a secret underground experiment called Project Fusion that gave her cybernetic enhancements for her abilities and all that stuff. And Project Fusion is one of those threads that goes throughout the series.
Mm-hmm.
When I finished book one, Bounty, it seems like Project Fusion is a thing of the past. But as the books go on, we find out that no, Project Fusion, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes. Oh, it's gonna be fun.
And that's when you get into conspiracies and the main bad guy of the series, David Greyer, he is very much a Lex Luthor type of villain.
Uh-huh.
And I gotta be honest, before recent happenings, he was a lot more fun to write than he is now.
Uh-oh.
Billionaire bad guy with ties to Russia isn't as fun as it used to be.
Yeah, I can see how that would be slightly problematic at the moment.
Yeah, I don't object to fiction mirroring real life most
Sure,
of the time.
no.
But in this one instance, I could do without it.
I understand.
Which is one of the reasons Bitter End is going to be the end of David Greyer as a villain.
Oh.
I haven't figured out how I'm going to end him yet, but his arc will end with the next book.
Uh-huh. Which tells me there's going to be another villain.
Once I create them, yes.
Yeah.
I know there are more books. I just haven't planned out what's going to happen in them yet.
Sure. But it sounds like fun.
I'm hoping so, because I feel like if it's fun to write, it'll probably be fun to read.
Yes. From your website, it looks like you've done a bunch of other things besides the Jill Anderson series. Let's explore some of those. Just
yes and no. When I was in high school, I had designs on being a comic book artist.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to be a novelist because I didn't even read novels.
Mm-hmm.
Because back then, for me, novels were something the English teacher made you read and then do a report on. So I was very big into comic books, and it got to the point where I wanted to make them. So I was creating my own characters. Jill was a character I created when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And what's now my fantasy book, Notna, I created that one. And I met a friend of mine back then, his name's Anton Chroma, and he helped, we collaborated on a lot of stuff. And I graduated at high school a year before him, so I didn't know if we were going to see each other again, so I told him, look, can I keep the stuff that you helped me create? Mm-hmm. And he said, sure, just make sure I get credit for it. Which is why I mentioned him in the acknowledgement section of every book I write. Notna is dedicated to him, and even the title Notna is Anton spelled backwards. I'm not very good with mystical names, so that seemed like as good an idea as any.
It works.
But Notna is very much a chosen one apocalyptic thing. So it's very much in the vein of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Supernatural, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
I mentioned Supernatural not because I'm a fan of the show, but because people who have read it say this is like Supernatural.
I've
And I'm
never
thinking,
actually seen the show, and I only know like this much about the storyline. So I'm just going to nod and smile and say
well,
yes.
I figure I'm not a fan of it, but I know a lot of people who are. It's a very popular show, so if that comparison helps me sell a couple more copies, I'll take it.
Go for it. Sure.
But the the main character is an archaeology professor, a guy named Dr. Jack Corbett. This is where the Indiana Jones comparison comes in. So a representative from the Smithsonian comes and says, "We'll offer you $5 million if you'll fly down to the Amazon rainforest and find the gem of Latinaville." Well, he's like, "I don't think this thing exists, but if you're going to put me on a private jet and give me $5 million, what's a trip to Brazil?" Well,
Sure.
he winds up being the chosen one, which
Ah.
is all which is all fine and dandy, except he's now in the middle of this millennia-old celestial war between they're heaven and hell, but I don't call them heaven and hell
Sure.
because I'm not trying to piss off any religious people.
Yeah.
But that's basically what it is. And
Okay. Sure.
Seraphis, the demon who runs the underworld, wants the gem because he thinks the gem is his ticket to win the war and do whatever he wants with Earth, which is probably destroy it and kill people. So, mild-mannered archaeology professor now has a war for the fate of the world on his lap. And he has to fight it whether he wants to or not.
Fun. Yes. Aha.
And there's a collection of short stories I wrote that goes with Notnik called Legends of the Gem. You don't have to have read Notnik or Legends of the Gem. It's just world building around the gem that didn't take up space in the main narrative.
Aha.
So you can if you've read Notnik, there are Easter eggs in there for you. If you haven't, it's still something you can read and enjoy.
Sure.
I
Sure.
get to I flex my muscles a little bit. I try some new things in Legends of the Gem. I typically don't write first person,
Hmm.
but I wrote a couple first person stories in Legends. And I even wrote one short story that was kind of like someone keeping a journal. Um,
Oh.
and there was another one that was like somebody wrote a postgraduate thesis. So I kind of experiment. Legends of the Gem was my chance to try some new things and see what can I get away with as a writer.
Fun. That's always entertaining to be able to kind of explore around without having to create a whole new series in which to explore.
Right, and the realization that if I screw this up, it's a short story.
Yeah.
It's not anything. It's not like it's a part of a big 120,000 word novel that they're reading it and it's fine until they get to this one part and I ruined it for them and they can't read anymore.
Oh no. Oh, that would be so bad. Oh. Oh, all that work. Poof.
Yep,
Yeah.
pretty much. I
All
haven't
right.
gotten to that point yet, but
Okay. Good. Good. Because that would be sad. I love the longer, more in-depth pieces, but the short stories for the world building is super fun too. Very exciting.
yeah,
As far
and again, I mentioned Witchblade before. This is another thing because back in the '90s when Witchblade was at the height of its popularity,
Mhm.
there was another series called Tales of the Witchblade
Mhm.
that was very much the same thing. We're able to tell the history of the Witchblade without taking up the main continuity.
Right. Right.
I'm very much the sort of writer where I like that idea. Let me make it my own.
Mhm.
There's no such thing as a completely original story
No.
anymore. Everything is a derivation of something else.
Yes. Yes. There's yeah. That's one of the problems I like fantasy. I've seen a lot of people try to do something unique and new, and it's there's about 7 other pieces that I've seen that are like this. But yours is very good, but it's not unique. Doesn't mean you can't have fun with it though.
This is one of the reasons in the plot versus character debate,
Mhm.
I'm firmly on the side of character
Yeah.
because great characters can overcome bad or boring plot.
Yes.
The other way around does not happen. You can have the greatest plot in the world, but if your characters are less interesting than a slab of cardboard, I don't care.
Yeah. Unless you're making a feature film with many millions of dollars of special effects budget.
I mean, you could make Justice League, but
Yeah. I watch those for the explosions.
that movie and Batman v Superman frustrated me not because they were bad movies, but because I saw what they were trying to do and they didn't do it. Like Batman v Superman would have been much better if they split it into 3 different movies.
Yeah.
That was one movie that would have been better served as a trilogy.
Yeah. But unfortunately, drumming enough interest for the trilogy, and then they cost money, and you've got actors and like unions, and it's all very complicated. So also the whole television industry needs an influx of new writers.
Yes,
That would be lovely. Too bad I don't write screenplays. So much
I,
fun.
I've tried to, but it's a lot different writing with the screen.
Yeah.
What I think a lot of people don't get is the skill set to write prose versus the skill set to write comic books versus the skill set to write for the screen or even to write poetry. Just because you can do one doesn't mean, I mean, you can do more than one, but
Sure.
it's a very different skill set.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as your writing process goes, from idea in the head to money in the bank, what's the least favorite part?
Hmm. I feel like the most popular answer to this is either going to be the editing part or the
I've gotten
marketing
that
part.
much. Yeah.
For me, it's the marketing part.
Yes.
The
Market.
editing part, the editing part, I don't mind so much, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because when I do it, my process makes it not quite so bad.
Okay.
What I do is once I finish writing the first draft, I let it sit for 2 weeks. I don't do anything with it. I don't even look at it.
Uh-huh.
For 2 weeks, I pretend it doesn't even exist. A, this gives me a break.
Yes.
B, it ensures that when I do come back to it, it's fresher than if I had just started editing immediately after I stopped writing.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't forgotten everything that I wrote. So it's not so fresh that I'm sitting there going, "What? When did I write this?" But what I do is I break my editing into first edit, spelling, and grammar. That's all I'm doing.
Okay, sure.
Then I take another 2 week break. Second edit. This time I'm looking for plot holes, continuity errors, which is really big for the series.
Yes.
Especially now that I have 5 books in it that I have to worry about. Okay, what did I do in book 2? Does that contradict what I'm going to do in book 6? Once I've done those 2, that's when I'm ready to send it off to someone else to edit.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're working on that, that's when I write the blurb
Oh, blurbs.
and I start thinking about my cover. Thankfully,
Uh-huh.
I've got a great cover artist who she's great to work with. I can give her 2 things and she'll crank out something that's almost perfect right from the get go.
Wow.
So once I get the manuscript back from the editor, I go through their notes,
Mm-hmm.
change what needs changed. I don't necessarily change everything because
Mm-hmm.
the editor's word is not always gospel. And I try to keep that in mind when I'm editing for other people as well.
Mm-hmm.
Another 2 week break. one last edit for spelling errors, grammar errors, because those little suckers will get by you no matter how many times you look at it in the script.
Yes. Yes.
I'll read my thing after it's already published and find, how'd I miss that?
I've seen that with every book I've ever read.
Even the traditionally published ones from the big names.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Okay.
my grandmother reads Michael Connelly, James Patterson, and their books have all those errors too. So it's not just us.
Nope. Nope.
I think by splitting up and giving each edit its own focus,
Mm-hmm.
the process of editing isn't as daunting.
No, I mean, it makes sense because you're not trying to worry about holding plot threads in your head while also respelling things to make sure that they're consistent and correct.
And I've been fortunate in the sense that none of the books I've edited have needed massive rewrites.
Well, that's useful.
And I think that's where I don't want to call it an outline because it's not an outline in the stricter sense, but having a roadmap of sorts helps.
Sure.
So I'm not a strict pantser anymore, but I'm more on the pantser side of the scale than the letter. But it does help.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a word for that. Plantser?
There's a book by Libby Hawker that is almost like a Bible of sorts to me. It's called Take Off Your Pants.
Okay. I'll have to write that down and look it up because it sounds like it could be a useful methodology.
Yeah, it's a book about outlining specifically tailored to people who don't outline.
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
And I bought her book and I read it when I was having trouble writing Betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
I'd gone through 3 different parts of the first draft and I was stuck. I wasn't getting anywhere. I read her book. I did the outline. Within a month, I had my draft.
Wow.
And so now I use a version of her method for every book I write.
Okay. That's cool. I'll have to look that up because it sounds very interesting. I mean, I've explored the outlining method and I've explored the seat of the pants method, and I think I'm probably somewhere in between depending on which story it is that I'm writing.
Mm-hmm.
So
the problem I find with outlining is I spend so much time and effort with the outline that when it comes time to write the story, it's not any fun anymore.
Yeah.
But if I do this way, you do an outline in a way that you give yourself wiggle room to, if you have your character zigging and they zag all of a sudden.
Sure.
Your story's okay. You're not not in trouble.
Hard part.
Yeah,
Characters. Oh.
That's the biggest misconception I think people who don't write have about writing. We are not in control of our characters.
No, gosh, no. That would end badly.
We are at the mercy of our characters. Jill proved that at the end of Behind the Badge, the 3rd book in the series.
Uh-oh.
She did something I never thought she'd do, but it fit in terms of the storyline.
Huh.
I just never thought she'd do it, but she did it.
Oh, I'm so curious now.
And then book 4, Behind the Mask, was basically me cleaning up her mess.
I approve. That's wonderful. Characters, when they go wrong. Yep.
You think they're going to do X and they do Y.
Yeah, don't even get me started about Zed. For other books in your genre, what do you think stands out as sort of like the cornerstone piece? Because there are a lot of superhero pieces out there, but it's harder to do, I think, in novel form than in graphic novel form or television or movie. So for the novel piece, like, what stands out as a cornerstone of the superhero, genre?
That's an interesting question because I haven't read a whole lot of superhero prose fiction.
Hmm.
It's a burgeoning genre. It's continuing to grow. It's not as
Sure.
big. And one of the problems the genre faces is it gets lumped in other places. Like
Oh.
it gets labeled urban fantasy a lot. It gets lumped into that, which urban
Huh.
fantasy is a great genre. Some of my
Sure.
favorite are in that genre, but you get a lot of urban fantasy that's not superhero, and you get a lot of superhero that's not urban fantasy, and they get lumped in together.
Right.
Uh, One good thing is I found this community on Facebook, superhero fiction, and they have a website, superhero-fiction.com.
Okay.
And they're running a big sale all this week of a whole bunch of superhero novels,
Oh.
bounty included, that are all 99 cents.
Hmm.
So you can go to superhero-fiction.com, get yourself a whole bunch of superhero books
All right. I
for
will.
$1 each. It's a genre that it's growing, and I think the thing you mentioned in your question is really the crux of the biggest issue with the genre is superhero fiction has for so long been visual.
Yeah.
Whether it's on, I watch Batwoman on the CW, I watch all the Marvel movies, well, most of them. There are a couple of them I skip. And comic books, you're so used to seeing superheroes
Yeah.
and the bright colors of their costumes and their powers and all that. Translating that into prose is hard.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to keep the superhero element, but at the same time, mystery is a very grounded genre.
Yes.
So the two genres were almost at odds with each other. Now, I'm writing a bounty graphic novel,
Hmm.
which once that gets going, I can be much. I lean much harder on the science fiction part of it in the graphic novel because I'll have the visuals to go with it.
Right.
Trying to take the visuals of superhero fiction and finding a way to turn that into prose is very difficult.
Hmm.
One thing I try to do is take a scene from one of the Marvel movies or whatever, or one of the comics, and make that a prose story.
Interesting.
And and I think that's part of the reason the superhero genre isn't as big as it could be.
Hmm.
Is when you're lacking that visual element. When you put the visual onus on the reader,
Hmm.
that can be a difficult thing. When they're used to the big explosions and the CGI fights on Wakanda,
Right.
it's a lot easier to show them Thor dropping in the middle of Wakanda with I forget the name of the hammer, and all the lightning everywhere.
Hmm.
It's not as easy to tell them about it.
Right. I mean, to be fair, the science fiction genre has kind of moved in the opposite direction, where most of the stories were done in prose form and now have moved into visual form. So, similar
I, th-
problems, I think.
I think part of that's because the visual effects have caught up.
That
Like
is true.
for the
Technology.
longest time, you didn't have the means to do visually what you saw on paper.
Right. Hmm.
But now that everyone's a CGI artist,
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. I wonder if there will ever be a point where it becomes just sort of passe for the superhero stuff to be. You can only go so far with the technology and show it so far, et cetera, et cetera. So therefore, the books, if they expand more in whatever direction, then I think that'll be interesting to see.
I think slowly but surely you're seeing it, particularly among self-published authors.
Right.
You don't see a lot of superhero fiction from traditional publishing unless it's a tie-in to like a Marvel character. Like I saw a Black Widow novel
Oh,
in Barnes and
interesting.
Noble. But yeah, you'll see that stuff from the traditional side. But a
Right.
lot of the original superhero storytelling is from indies and self-published authors.
Ooh, fun. I do love a good superhero novel. They're entertaining.
Well, there are more of them than you think. You just got to know where to look for them.
Yes, which I think is the hard part for all of the indie world is like poking around and finding what it is that you're wanting.
Yeah, that's one of the great things I've noticed ever since I started publishing is being an indie author. I see what other indie authors have to offer, and a lot of all the best books I've read in the last couple of years, I'd say 90% of them are self-published or indie.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, at this point, I'm reading almost exclusively indie books simply because that's what crosses my desk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for people trying to get into the genre, what are traps that they should avoid?
Get into the genre as readers or as writers?
Yes.
Well, for readers, it's what I mentioned before, the fact that superhero books tend to get lumped in with other genres.
Mm-hmm.
There is a superhero tag on Amazon.
Oh, is there? That's nice.
Some of what's in that tag isn't superhero. Because what some authors do, and this isn't most indie authors, but a couple of them, they'll put their book in a genre listed on Amazon that isn't as populated in the hopes of getting a better rating.
Yes.
If they can weasel their way into a genre that doesn't have a whole lot of books and they sell a bunch,
Mm-hmm.
they can be like, oh, I'm a bestseller in this genre, but their book isn't really that genre.
Right.
So that's where sites like superhero fiction that I mentioned before, they vet every book that's submitted to them. And if they feel it's not superhero, they won't list it.
Oh, interesting.
So sometimes you're better off going that route to find your superhero book rather than just going to Amazon to the Kindle store and typing in superhero.
Yeah.
You may get what you're looking for, but you may also find something that's not quite what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And I don't want people buying a book they think is going to be superhero and then they realize it's not.
Mm-hmm.
For writers, keeping in mind that you don't have the visuals to fall back on.
Yeah.
The reader has to provide that. You have to give the reader enough information that they know what they're looking at in their mind's eye while they read. But
right.
The onus is on you as the writer. It's not, oh, I can just splash something up on the screen. It'll look pretty. Now, there's no looking pretty when you're writing a superhero book. Your cover might look pretty. Your cover better look pretty.
Yeah, that does help.
When I first published Bounty, I put no effort into the cover whatsoever because I didn't think it mattered all that much. That's the one thing I wish I knew back then that I know now.
It matters.
If you're looking to write superheroes, keep in mind that you don't have visuals to fall back on. And if you want to mix superheroes with another genre, by all means. I think most superhero writers do that.
Oh, interesting.
But keep in mind what makes your superhero superhero.
Right.
And don't lose track of that, because then if your aim is to be a superhero writer and you lose track of what makes them a superhero, then you're not a superhero writer anymore.
Right.
And that's where I think reading some of the others will help.
Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of, well, even mainstream superhero stories sometimes lose that extra bit in the fact, well, we've got all these effects, we can just make it look nice, you know.
And it was funny because when I first got into comic books back in the 90s, I was a big, the first series I read was X-Men. And I knew the X-Men from the cartoon, and they're almost always in costume fighting.
Sure.
I picked up an issue of X-Men, There's not one costume in the entire issue. They spend the whole time just talking to each other. 12-year-old me is thinking, what's going on here? I thought this was the X-Men. Now that I'm older and I have a better grasp of storytelling, I understand that you need that.
Mm-hmm.
But for a superhero movie, if all they see is just plainclothes people talking, you may turn them off.
That's true. There are certain expectations for the movies as opposed to other genres or other not mediums. Well, it has been fascinating talking with you. I learned all sorts of fun things about the superhero genre, and also your books sound like huge amounts of trouble because murder mysteries and superheroes. Yes, obviously it's a good mix there. Mm-hmm. Two great genres put together.
And through the first 5 books, there's only been one superhero, but I do have storylines going forward where there will be more of them. So Jill's going to be facing a world in which she's no longer the only superhero anymore. And
That'll be true.
What does that mean, not only for her as a superhero, but also the fact that she's law enforcement.
Right.
She has a badge.
Oh.
And there's bureaucracy and government red tape that comes with that. So going forward, just because I'm about to get rid of her main villain right now doesn't mean that things are going to get easier for her. If anything, they're going to get more complicated going forward.
Okay, now I'm even more excited to read these books because, yay! Cutting through red tape. I find that highly entertaining.
It's entertaining to read about, not so good to deal with in real life.
Yes, no, it's very entertaining to read, and I'm looking forward to it. Ooh. Okay, sorry. I get excited about these things. It's fun.
It is. I get excited about a lot of the books I haven't yet to read too. Especially when there's an author I really like and I know, they got a book coming out next month, and I've got an advanced copy of it.
Yes, that is always fun. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add, writing related or not writing related?
Two things real quick. First of all, obviously the best way to improve as a writer is to write.
Yeah.
I think reading is just as important, if not more so. Like Stephen King says, if you don't have time to read, you don't have the time or the tools to be a writer.
Yeah.
I would suggest don't just read the stuff that's similar to what you write. Read other genres, read nonfiction, read biographies, read the newspaper, so long as there are still newspapers. Read magazines, because the more you read, the better you will be as a writer. And for anybody who's interested to find out more, my website is jdcuneganbooks.com. All of my books are listed there. I run a blog on there. All my social media platforms are on there. I also do art commissions. I sell art prints. I sell signed copies of my books. And if anybody's looking for an editor, I do editing services as well.
Oh, very exciting. All good to know.
I'm a busy guy.
Art on your banner back there?
Yes. This was all me.
Very cool.
I mentioned wanting to be a comic book artist, and I was really good, but then I got to college, and here's a tip: don't go study art at a non-art school.
Oh yeah, that's got to be tough.
So I stopped doing art for a long time, and naturally my writing got better, my art didn't. So if I'm going to do this graphic novel, I need my art to get back to similar music. So I'm trying to shake off the rest. Some days are better than others on that, but I'd love to write the script and get it to someone else to draw, but that involves paying them. I can't do it, and I'm not going to have somebody drawn to the book and not read it. No, the last thing I would say is if you read indie books or self-published books and you love them, please leave a review.
Yes.
Even if it's just, I loved it, 5 stars. That goes a long way for us indie authors.
Yes. All of the reviews help so very, very much. All right. Well, have a fantastic day, and I will see you around. Good luck
You
with your
too.
books.
Thank you.